Now, as you know, the former President Trump has said that it was Antifa, it was all these other groups that inspired the violence and not his supporters. Um,
Well, so he said a lot of things.
yeah,
He said that he loves them and that they're his supporters and that they're great patriots. But then he also says that it was Antifa and it was a false flag operation orchestrated by the FBI. So there's not one specific narrative coming from Donald Trump or even from the Republicans. They're kind of throwing everything out there and seeing what sticks.
yeah. What you got a chance to meet with Minority Leader McCarthy? What did and you were able to record the conversation? What was your impression of him and his defense of Trump in that conversation you had with him?
I mean, my overall impression of Kevin McCarthy is that he was indifferent to my experience and to the experience of the other officers that fought on January 6th. It was clear that to Kevin McCarthy, we were a political inconvenience and that he was doing whatever he could to minimize the negative optics of his party's support or continued support for Donald Trump and any negative political fallout that they might experience because of that. But ultimately, I didn't feel like Kevin McCarthy gave a shit about me.
Yeah, yeah, and other members of Congress, like Senator Ron Johnson, have tried to kind of recast the day as saying it was a tourist trip and had to downplay the violence. What do you say to people like this who are trying to sort of reimagine history that you experience?
Well, I mean, for those people, I think that especially at this stage in the game, 19, 20 months later, like they've chosen their side. On January 6th, Donald Trump declared war on America. And I'm not talking about figuratively. He literally amassed an army of his supporters and sent them to attack the Capitol and prevent Congress from certifying the election. I see people like Ron Johnson and Andrew Clyde and Marjorie Taylor Greene and those individuals as having chosen a side, and they sided with Donald Trump. I think that obviously their mischaracterizations of that day are lies. The things that Ron Johnson has said that there were no weapons present is a lie. There were arrests made for individuals who possessed firearms. There's plenty of evidence showing that that there were firearms there, and that individuals were taken into custody for that. So I don't know. I would just implore Americans to seek out other sources of information besides Ron Johnson and those like him.
Yeah. So what do you think? The court cases are kind of working their way through the system now. I know you've gone to a couple of the court proceedings. What's your feeling towards these people that attacked you on that level?
I mean, I think they need to be held accountable, and for those that there's evidence that they committed a crime, they should be brought to justice, tried. If they're guilty,
do you think the sentences that have been handed out so far are sufficient?
I think in some circumstances they're sufficient. I think in other circumstances they've been, lacking. I mean, listen, as an officer who spent 2 decades working in the criminal justice system, when a judge complains that the government is not asking for enough time, that's a clue. That doesn't happen ever.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what is political accountability for the people who led the? Well, let's take this in two parts. One, there's these sort of militia groups like the Oath Keepers, and that trial. It looks like they're going for more time. Do you have feelings about those groups in particular? Those kind of militia groups that were involved in planning?
Yeah, I mean these are dangerous groups. Um, they are anti-government groups that many of them um, adhere to a white supremacist ideology. The fact that the former president and his allies invited them in to be part of legitimate political discourse is outrageous. Um, but I think we need to understand that what these groups are, that these are not patriotic organizations, that they're very much anti-democracy and anti-government. Um, we've seen some of the most serious charges relating to their participation in the insurrection on January 6th. Many of them have been charged with seditious conspiracy. Some have already pled guilty. Again, it's important that they're held accountable. It's important that elected leaders who may have committed crimes are also held accountable. No one in America is above the law, not even the president of the United States. And so, when we're speaking about him, I think that at least I have been convinced as a former law enforcement officer in the results presented by the Select Committee's investigation that Donald Trump is criminally culpable in that he attempted to defraud the American people by lying about the election results, that was his intention long before the first ballot was cast, and that those lies resulted in the violence that we saw unfold on January 6th.
Yeah. So, what is accountability for Trump, and what is accountability for the people who helped him, like Giuliani and Bannon? Like, what do you hope comes? Is it just charges from the Justice Department? Is it a prison sentence? What would be justice in your view?
Yeah, I mean, for me, justice is if there were crimes committed or evidence that crimes were committed, that those individuals be tried. And I think that it's up to us as American citizens to accept the results of that trial. But they certainly, I think, warrant a trial if there's evidence that crimes were committed. Now, that being said, I think there was a lot of people that were supportive before or after the fact, who may be morally or ethically responsible, but not criminally. And I think ultimately the American people are our own, ethics board. We have the ability to vote these people out of office. And so that's what I would like to see happen to those who may not have committed crimes in relation to the insurrection on January 6th, but certainly are supporting it.
Yeah. So, how are you doing today? What's your physical condition as a result of all these injuries that you had?
I'm fortunate to have recovered from the physical injuries that I sustained. And I think in a lot of ways, I've come to terms with, the psychological and emotional trauma that I experienced on January 6th. And as a result of me speaking out. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it almost a kind of therapy to be able to write this book and to tell your piece about what happened?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the writing process was cathartic for me, but I will say that, prior to the book release, I mean, I was incredibly apprehensive about how it would be received. I mean, it's a very personal story. And I think that, like I've always been, I was very transparent about aspects of my life and my career, brutally honest. But with that, comes an intense amount of scrutiny. And I mean, I'm fortunate that I've had a lot of supporters voice their appreciation for me doing that.
And you still get threats from supporters and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. But I guess that's just part of it comes with the territory now. And also, in addition to that, it's not just the threats, it's the mischaracterization and the lies. It's part of living in this world, I guess.